He stole from his own father. What kind of man does that? That sentence. It's not just something they said about me. It became the rhythm of my life. A sentence I never served time for, but one that sentenced me all the same. I was 21 when I was exiled from my family, from my home, from the only town I'd ever known, Havenwood, North Carolina. I remember that night in excruciating detail, like a slow-burning fever dream. My father stood in the center of our kitchen, stone-faced, holding an empty business ledger like a weapon. My brother, Zach, hovered behind him, his jaw tight, his expression perfectly sculpted into heartbreak. Dad didn't yell. He never needed to. One sentence, delivered like a verdict, changed everything. You're no longer welcome in this house. Just like that. He believed I'd stolen from the family business, thousands of dollars meant for payroll and investment. The timing? Devastating. Zach had just announced his internship with a state senator. Suddenly, his reputation was in jeopardy, and I was the perfect scapegoat. No son of mine would do something so shameful, he said. So I guess you're not my son. I remember the sound of the screen door slamming behind me. It was the last thing I heard before the silence set in. I left with a duffel bag, a rusted-out truck, and a heart that didn't just break. It folded in on itself. My mother tried to reach out once. A voicemail I deleted without listening. I was angry, I was proud, and I was broken. A year later, she was gone. Stroke, they said. I didn't attend the funeral. I convinced myself I wasn't welcome. Truth is, I didn't have the strength. For the next 15 years, I drifted. I became a ghost in my own life. Worked odd jobs, carpentry, roofing, laying down floors, anything to keep my hands busy and my mind numb. I kept moving because stillness invited memories. And memories hurt. Then, 2 weeks ago, I got the call. It wasn't from my father. He wouldn't lower himself to that. It was from Rachel, my ex-girlfriend, the woman I once thought I'd marry, until she left with Zach 5 years after I was kicked out. Your dad had a stroke, she said quietly. He's not doing well. He asked for you. I almost laughed. Asked for me? After 15 years of silence? But something in her voice, tired, cracked, almost remorseful, made me pause. That night, I stood in front of my truck for a long time. Part of me wanted to erase her message, block the number, and bury the past for good. But another part of me, the part that never stopped wondering, never stopped hoping, grabbed my keys. Returning to Havenwood felt like walking through a memory with jagged edges. The houses were the same, but smaller. The streets still had names I remembered, but they didn't feel like mine anymore. I parked in the gravel driveway of the house I once called home. It looked exactly the same. White siding, green shutters, porch swing that creaked in the wind. But it no longer felt like a safe place. Zach opened the front door. Same polished appearance. Same tailored shirt. Same cool, calculated presence. You actually came, he said, as if surprised I had the nerve. I'm here for Dad, I replied. Inside, the house was immaculate. Clean lines, not a thing out of place. Like grief had been vacuumed away. Dad lay in a hospital bed in the living room, half his body paralyzed, unable to speak. His eyes, once sharp as glass, were soft now, and full of something I hadn't seen from him in years. Guilt. He tried to reach for me, but his hand barely twitched. I stepped closer, unsure of what to feel. I'll give you two some time, Zach said, retreating like a politician who had just shaken a stranger's hand and was already thinking about the next photo op. I sat beside my father and stared into his eyes. We didn't say a word, but something passed between us. Like the air itself knew this moment had waited too long. That night, I stayed in my old room. They'd painted over everything. No posters, no furniture I recognized, just a guest bed and neutral walls. But in the far corner, half covered by a dusty blanket, sat an old wooden chest. I didn't remember leaving it behind. I opened it and found only one item inside. A faded envelope. My name was written on the front. It was my mother's handwriting. Hands trembling, I opened it. My dear Nathan, if you're reading this, I pray you've come home. I never believed what they said about you. But there are things you don't know, things I couldn't tell you before I was gone. Please, don't stop searching. The truth is waiting. With love, always, Mom. Taped to the bottom of the letter was a small, old-fashioned brass key. A key to what? I held it in my palm like a secret from another lifetime. And I knew something was buried in this house. And I had just taken the first step toward digging it up. The next morning greeted me with fog and a strange stillness, as if the house itself was waiting. I walked into the kitchen. Rachel stood at the stove, frying eggs like it was any other morning in any other family. But this wasn't a family anymore. This was a crime scene with nice lighting. You still like your eggs over hard? She asked, not looking at me. I stopped having preferences a long time ago. She paused, then turned to face me. Her face looked older, tired, worn down by secrets. But her eyes, they still had the same flicker of guilt I remembered from years ago. I called you because you deserve to know the truth. Truth? I asked. Now you want to talk about truth? She placed a plate in front of me. You'll find it. Just keep going. Before I could ask what that meant, she left the room. Her cryptic words replayed in my mind as I wandered through the house, retracing old steps. My mother's letter, the brass key, her plea not to give up. Something was waiting to be unlocked. I went to the attic, my mother's sanctuary. Sunlight spilled through dusty windows, casting long shadows across forgotten furniture and stacks of boxes. In the far corner, behind old Christmas decorations and photo albums, was a weathered trunk with a tarnished keyhole. I took out the brass key and held my breath. It slid in with a soft click. Inside, wrapped in cloth and bound with a ribbon, was a leather journal. My mother's handwriting danced across the cover. For Nathan, when the time is right. I sat down in the attic dust, opened the journal, and began to read. What I found inside shattered me. Page after page, she documented the slow unraveling of Zach's lies. Financial records, transactions, copies of receipts, even notes about strange conversations she'd overheard, one in particular with Rachel that had haunted her. Zach confessed to moving the money, said it was a temporary fix. When I confronted him, he swore he'd return it. But then Nathan was blamed. He didn't deny it. He let it happen. Couldn't breathe. For 15 years, I thought maybe I had made a mistake. Maybe I missed something. But no. Zach had framed me, intentionally, carefully, and without hesitation. He didn't just destroy my life. He built his on top of the rubble. I turned the final page. Post-it note was stuck to the last entry. If something happens to me, the basement wall safe still has the originals. Use your father's birthday in reverse. Keep going, son. Don't let the truth die with me. My hands trembled. The attic felt like it was spinning. My mother had left me a map. Zach had left me for dead. But I wasn't dead. And I sure as hell wasn't finished. I stood in the basement staring at the far wall like it might come alive and speak. The memory of my mother's handwriting echoed in my head. The basement wall safe still has the originals. Use your father's birthday in reverse. The workbench was still there, dusty and rusting at the corners. I pulled it aside, revealing the panel behind it, smooth drywall with the faintest rectangular outline. My fingers traced the edges until I found a groove. I pressed, and a hidden panel clicked open. Behind it was a small steel safe no larger than a toolbox. I hesitated for a long moment before punching in the code. 081248. My father's birthday backwards. Click. The lock disengaged. I opened the safe, heart hammering against my ribs. Inside were 2 manila envelopes, a flash drive, and 3 cassette tapes, each labeled with dates from 15 years ago. I opened the first envelope. Bank records, legal statements, printed screenshots of emails between Zach and a man I recognized, Dad's former accountant, the one who mysteriously retired after the scandal. There were large withdrawals made in my name, but they didn't originate from my IP address or signature. Someone had forged them, badly. The second envelope contained personal letters. One from Rachel, one from Zach to Rachel, and one from my mother to an unnamed attorney, apparently never sent. Then there were the tapes. I carried them upstairs and found an old cassette player in the attic storage closet. My hands shook as I loaded the first tape and pressed play. The recording crackled, but I recognized the voices immediately. Rachel. Zach. This isn't right, Zach. You're setting him up, your own brother. I told you, Rachel, I had to. Dad would have disowned me if he knew. Nathan was already on thin ice. It's not like he's going anywhere in life anyway. This will blow over. And we'll be fine. You said you'd fix it. That you'd clear his name. I changed my mind. He's gone. It worked. Let it go. The player whirred to a stop, but the words kept replaying in my mind. They didn't just betray me. They planned it, executed it, buried it, and now they were thriving. Zach was running for state office. Rachel was his well-spoken wife, standing beside him at fundraisers and photo ops. And me? I'd spent 15 years rebuilding my life from ashes. I stood at the kitchen window for a long time, staring out at the backyard where Zach and I used to play catch. I remembered laughing with him, cheering him on, calling him my hero. Now I knew the truth. He was the one who threw the first match, and I was the one who burned. That night, I confronted Rachel. She was sitting in the living room, scrolling through her phone like nothing in the world was wrong. I walked in, set the cassette player down on the table, and pressed play. She listened. She didn't cry. She didn't protest. When the tape clicked off, she looked at me no longer with defiance but with defeat. I knew this day would come, she whispered. Why'd you do it? I asked. Was I just a pawn to you? She shook her head. I loved you. I did. But I was afraid. Zach made promises. He said it would just be temporary, that he'd confess eventually. But then time passed and I stopped believing it. You could have told the truth. I know, she said, voice cracking. And I'll live with that. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw something. But instead, I just said, I'm not the same boy you left behind. She nodded silently. I didn't need anything else from her. The truth wasn't hers to give anymore. It was mine to reveal. The town square was buzzing. Red, white, and blue streamers danced in the wind. Folding chairs lined the plaza. A podium stood at the front, surrounded by banners that read, Zach Harper for State Assembly, a legacy of leadership. The irony made my stomach turn. I waited until just before Zach took the stage. I walked through the crowd with steady steps, a backpack slung over my shoulder, and the cassette player tucked safely inside. Eyes turned. Some recognized me. Some just sensed something was off. Zach stood behind the podium, smile gleaming like a politician's trademark. Thank you, Havenwood, he began. This town raised me, shaped me, and today I want to talk about integrity. Let's do that, I said, stepping onto the stage. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Zach froze. Nathan, he said, voice tight. What are you doing? I won't take long, I said into the microphone. Just a little story. About family. About betrayal. About justice. Security hesitated. Zach held up a hand, trying to manage the optics. It's okay, he said, still smiling. My brother's just emotional. I nodded. You're right. I am. I pressed play. Rachel's voice rang through the speakers. Zach's voice followed. The silence that followed was deafening. Whispers erupted into murmurs. People stood from their chairs. Reporters raised their cameras. The illusion was crumbling in real time. This is doctored, Zach shouted. This is fake. I pulled the journal from my bag and held it up. My mother documented everything. Her voice is gone now, but her truth isn't. The sheriff, standing in the crowd, made his way to the stage. I handed over the flash drive, the journal, and the tapes. Zach tried to walk away, but his supporters no longer followed. One donor tore a campaign button from his shirt. Another muttered, "Unbelievable," before disappearing into the crowd. Justice wasn't loud. It didn't scream. It arrived calmly, dressed in truth, and stood still while liars ran. That night, I returned to Dad's bedside. I told him everything. not in anger but in full. When I was done, he squeezed my hand, his one good hand, and tears streamed from his eyes. He couldn't speak, but he didn't need to. We both knew what that grip meant. I'm sorry. I was wrong. I see you now. A week later, I moved into a small cabin just outside Havenwood. Built it up myself. Quiet life. Honest work. I didn't stay for revenge. I stayed for redemption. Sometimes people ask me if I ever forgave Zach. Truth is, I didn't need to. He answered to the truth. And that's justice enough. One Sunday, I visited my mother's grave. I sat under the oak tree that shaded her headstone and pulled out her letter again. Don't stop searching. The truth is waiting. I placed fresh flowers beside the marker. Rest easy, Mom. I found it. In the end, the truth always finds a way, especially in families. No lie lasts forever. And when justice finally arrives, it doesn't ask for applause. It just makes things right.